Hey rats, who's ready for a ratitude check? Because I am. Weird setup right now. We were supposed to have Zach on the pod, okay? And then Zach, it's funny because someone asked, what's Zach's job? Well, Zach's job's the reason he's not on the pod right now, because sometimes he has like late night work calls, and we were like waiting and waiting and waiting. And then he's got tennis. And he sounds like, I'm looking for a man in finance. So no Zach today, but we are gonna record that episode. So I screenshotted all the questions. Sometimes life lives. Last week Zach wasn't on the pod because he doesn't always love being on camera, and I like to respect that. Then he was like, this morning he's like, yeah, I'll be on the pod. And then this came up, and I was like, I'm just gonna go record the pod because the rats need the pod. By the way, today I kind of just want to talk about failure because it was supposed to be with Zach, and I was like, what other topic would be fun to talk about? And as I was sitting down here, I was like, oh, I could do a pop culture episode. But then as I was sitting down, I was like, let's talk about failure, because I think that's just really interesting. And the reason it came into my head is because as I was sitting down, there's like 60 people that listen to this podcast, which is actually like very little in terms of like a thing that takes like a lot of work, editing wise and whatever wise. It's not a ton of work. It's just, it makes no money, and 60 people listen to it, but it's like, this is 60 people I care to talk to, and one day we might grow. There's like between 60 to 80 rats, depending on the topic. And I just really like being here for my rats. So is it a failure, right? Like you could look at that and you could say like, oh, that's a failure. We're on episode like 15. That's 15 weeks. 15 weeks. And like probably, I don't know, like nothing crazy. Like probably like 5 hours a week. Like, the editing it's not crazy. But you might at this point quit. Right? And I don't think I should, and I'm literally not going to, because there's different ways of looking at things. And maybe this is like, again, how I always joke about like the Libra thing. It's like I'm always looking at things from different angles, because yes, there's always like the rational angle, the logical angle, there's the dark angle, there's the positive angle, there's the toxically positive angle, there's the toxically negative angle, there's the funny angle, there's the do it for the plot angle. Like I could go on. There's always a reason to keep going, typically, unless the thing itself is something that's bad for you. That's a different conversation. Failing at things you love is an important conversation. I mean, so is figuring out how to let go of things that aren't good for you, like absolutely, but that's a different kind of failing. And we're not going to talk about that right now. We're just going to talk about positive failures. I've failed so much in my life. I feel like I'm currently failing, like big time, like hugely, guys. Like that almost like it's been really tough. It's been a really tough year. And it's funny because it's like when I shared that with a friend, I was like, honestly, 2024 is like one of the hardest years of my life by far. I can count 11 to 12 things that have just been really freaking hard this year. And I'm not going to go through them all because whatever, But it's funny because I was talking to her and she was like, but you got married this year. So to her, this year doesn't look like a failure because I got married. And that is a good point. This year is a very good year if I look at the fact that I got married. But even with my marriage or like my wedding, I can point to you all the failures I had when planning a wedding. We talk about a lot of them. Like I just think like with everything positive, there are failures. And they're important. And you either learn from them, you either, get somewhere from them. Sometimes they just suck, and like that's okay too. Like sometimes you fail and it just sucks. I've failed a couple times this year, like big time. And it's crazy because it's like I'm almost turning 30. So my career right now like feels like a failure. It feels like such a failure. I was supposed to have a career by now. I don't have my dream career. I have other things that I scrape by with, but I was supposed to be stable by 30. Like if you told 20-year-old me, like, by 30, you're going to be like financially no farther than you are right now, she'd scream. I currently want to scream. You know what I mean? So it feels like a failure, and like everyone around you, maybe like their career is like popping off, or like they're 30, so like they've got like pretty solid careers in the fields they studied in and blah, blah, blah. right? But you could break down that and look at it a million ways, you know? The one thing I haven't failed in is fun. The one thing I haven't failed in is chasing a dream. The one thing I haven't failed in is like enjoying every day knowing I'm working towards what I want to be working towards. And I don't think everyone who has those solid jobs can say that. But that doesn't mean they failed either. It just means that there's always a positive we can pull from this shit. Do you know what I mean? So I just think it's so important to switch up the language sometimes. Like maybe failures, it's just you got to work on the language. You know, like last week we talked about like body neutrality, because it's like, right, we talk about that last, well, we did the big sister chat, so I'm sure that was somewhere in there, but body neutrality is like in a big way changing mindset, but like changing language, right? Like it's just changing the language you use for your body, and finding something that works for you, right? So it's the same kind of like when you come to careers, it's like you can just change the language. Like I know a couple of people who have completely started over from scratch at like 27, 28, 35. I have a friend who's in her 30s, like mid to late 30s now, you know, and it's like, yeah, her career's not there yet either, but she has not failed. And if she ever said she'd failed, I'd be like, no, you haven't. Like, that's crazy. So you sometimes just have to be able to find that language for yourself, like be your own best friend. I love to say that. I did not invent that, by the way. That's from that influencer I really love. Her name's Chessie King. She's like an OG, like Instagram influencer. She wrote a book and it was called Be Your Own Best Friend. And I was like, I love that. Like the saying itself, like be your own best friend. You really do just have to be your own best friend. And I think that's like, again, cool language. Speaking of switching up language, I think that's just really cool language, right? Because it's like, yeah, if you thought of yourself as your best friend, you'd probably treat yourself better, right? Like, period. Like, it's, you know, there's that. So when it comes to failures, rewrite the script, right? Like, even if you took like your worst failure in your career, like right now, I could talk about the fact that like at 30, almost 30, I am no farther than where I was financially when I was 20. But all I have to do is take out that word financially, and it goes away, because I am so much farther in this career than I was at 20. Not financially, but in terms of experience, learning, like just talent changing, like life changing me, my perspective on things. I'm more ready now. Like if my career popped off tomorrow, I'm a more ready human to handle that than I would have been at 20. You know, in so many ways, I have not failed. You know, it's just sometimes things don't work out the way you think they're going to go in your head, but it doesn't mean you're not getting something. And it's funny because, again, I don't want to side on the air of, or backward sentence, err on the side of toxic positivity, because I used to be quite toxically positive. So you have to excuse my brain for going there sometimes, but then I got sick, and it's like almost impossible to be toxically positive when you're like diagnosed with a very serious disease. But even with that disease, like, and the reason I hate toxic positivity is because when people are like, but what did you learn from your disease? It's like, yes, bitch, I could list you some shit that I learned from my disease. Like, yeah, you got me. But that's anything. That doesn't mean I want these lessons. Doesn't mean I needed these effing lessons. It just means something shit happened and I had to get these lessons. I had to level up. I had to be stronger. Yeah, it's cool to be stronger, you know, but it's not ever cool to go through really scary shit. That's just scary shit. The bonus on the other side is someone like spanks your ass and is like, congrats, now you're fucking strong. Like, it's fucked, you know? So I don't like toxic positivity, but failure is important. And it's funny because when I do these podcasts, I don't know, it's like slightly cheesy. I'm like, well, I kind of just sound like it's really crazy when someone who doesn't have a lot of life experience is like giving advice. But again, reword that. Do I have life experience? In a sense, yeah, because I've had a different life than you. There's so much we could learn from each other. I'm just the one that decided to come out with a podcast and spew my learnings upon the world to the 60 to the 80 rats listening to this, who I love so much. And that's the podcast. Like the podcast, I told myself from the beginning, like I knew it would be hard to start a podcast. I knew I wasn't famous enough. I wasn't like so many things. I'm not talented enough. I'm not good at it yet. But what I could do is it could just be like a love letter to the rats. Like, it's just for the rats. Like, thank your people who are helping you get to where you want to get to. Now, I'm not saying you need to start a podcast. I'm just saying this podcast isn't a failure if it gives you, the people who are supporting me on my dream, anything. If it gives you anything, then it's not a failure. So you just got to find the right words for all of your shit. Let me try to come up with some examples, okay? Okay, let's say you're a corporate girly. You hate your job. Your boss is terrifying. Like, let's say it's Devil Wears Prada. Maybe your job's not even as cool as being like, an assistant to a Prada person, okay? Like, let's say it's just corporate world, but we've got that vibe of like, yeah, that's a toxic boss. That's a really freaking toxic boss, and you're scared to go to work. You might feel like a failure, but then all you have to hear is the fact that you're saving for retirement, and there are people, pointing at myself, who aren't doing that right now. So, like, in that bucket, you're not failing, man. Or like, that job lets you go to Paris this summer. That's not failing. That's not failing. That's not failing. That job, like, let's say that job lets you, even if we go to, like, let's say it is tough right now, because it is actually just very scary, tough times right now. Like, we don't have to get into that, because that is a black hole where I like to keep the lid on it, and then I like to talk about it with the right people at the right times. But the lid of the world and how scary the effing world is, we're going to leave that lid on. We don't need to get into that. This is supposed to be a positive podcast that gives you something. I don't want to go there right now. Maybe one day I will, like, lift that lid, but my brain can get dark, okay? So I don't want to lift that lid. So anyways, let's say times are tough. You're at your job, you hate it. But even if that job lets you join like a pickleball league on Sundays where you make friends, or you have social connections, or you like listen to a self-help book on the way to that pickleball, and that pickleball is social and lovely, and you laugh and you have community, you're not failing. You're not failing, because I can tell you something, like, someone who has your dream job probably doesn't have the community you have. Or someone who has your dream job, I mean, y'all, okay, it's the smell the pit theory. I think I have to patent that. I actually think I have to patent that. How do you patent a theory? You can't smell their armpit. It will always come back to that with me. I'm sorry, I'm having a brainwave about what I'm going to impart on the world, and it's going to be you can't smell their armpit. And I'm sorry, that is what I'm going to impart on the world, okay? I am a rat. Like, it's going to be, like, rat-adjacent material coming out of my mouth. But, like, you can't smell their armpit, so that applies to, like, finance girl boss who is driving, like, I don't know cars, a Maserati, I don't know cars, has a Prada bag, has all Charlotte Tilbury makeup, has a blowout every week, has a spray tan every week, looks amazing, dream everything. Guess what? This is gonna be toxic advice, but, like, guess what? Their dog might hate them, okay? Their friends might hate them. Their friends might be bullying them. We don't wish that upon her. Never wish that upon her, right? Like, let's get that straight. It's just the theory of you can't smell her armpit, so you don't actually know what's going wrong, right? Everyone is failing somewhere. Like, there's no way to go through life. Like, think about it. Is there any way to go through life perfectly? You know there isn't. There isn't. So why do you expect yourself to do it? Makes no sense. I mean, more shit I can get into, which is, again, like, the core of my existence since diabetes, is like, this is a floating rock. You are in a skin sack. What actually does matter? Right? What actually matters is being able to enjoy your everyday, because it's getting harder and harder to do that. Again, the lid on the scariness of the world. Okay, we're keeping it sealed, but, like, we can all imagine, right? It's tough. So if you are finding sparks of joy in your day, if you are finding sparks that turns into flames, if you are having firework days, you are doing something right. If you have firework people in your life, you are doing something right. If you do not have these things, if you are not happy, if you do not have good people around you, it is time for action. I'm not going to lie to you. But even if, let's say, everything on paper seems wrong, I bet I could, if I talked to you, I could find something so amazing that you have that nobody else has. it could simply be the fact that, let's go somewhere weird. Maybe you're someone that like leaves nice comments on like random people's TikToks. That is like crazy kindness, and you wouldn't even know that. But like, that's crazy. I don't do that. I rarely comment on TikToks. I'm on the internet and I just enjoy shit. When am I giving back? You know what I mean? And it sounds stupid, but I'm trying to give a stupid example, because even the stupidest example isn't stupid. We should talk about timelines. This is a big problem in the world. Like, the timelines, like me, it's like, at 30, I thought I would have my career set. Yeah, and now I'm sad because I had this weird timeline in my head. Fuck the timelines. Guess what? The universe has your timeline picked out for you, or like life does, or whatever you believe in. Like, it's already all happening. Like, you just get to relax and enjoy the ride and make good choices. Surround yourself with good people. Find joy in every day. Those are your jobs. Those are your jobs. Figure out good people to be by. Find joy in your cup of coffee. We've already talked about this too. Happy people are people who can find happiness in every day. They can find gratitude. Big sister advice, right? Like, find gratitude in your everyday. You will become a happier human. You will surround yourself with happier humans, and you will do better in life than the unhappy humans. I feel kind of crazy. Like, this angle also on the YouTube, like if you're watching on YouTube, it's like a really freaky angle, but it's because Zach is like taking calls and I didn't want to stress him out when we were at the cottage this weekend, and my tripod is in my luggage somewhere, but I didn't want to interrupt his phone call. So I was like, I'm just going to set this up somewhere weird. And now it's a very intense conversation where I'm like leaning over you and my hands are moving and I'm very passionate. But I really love you guys. I really appreciate you guys, everything you give me. I'm trying to give back in this way, right? Like, sharing what I know, sharing just secrets of the world, right? Like, if you are someone, like, let's talk about failures. You know what a failure is? Like, and even, I'm going to say this, and I don't want to offend anyone who's maybe done this, right? Let's say you cheated on someone. That's a failure. Like, you're being a bad human, okay? That is just no arguments. That's a bad thing to do, unless we're in an extreme situation in which the person, right, like, let's just not go to what ifs, because yes, there's always what ifs and loopholes to like a statement, but in general, cheating is very bad, okay? Even if you cheated, I bet we could take this toxic bad thing that happened in your life, like my diabetes, and one day you're going to be able to say, and I'm stronger for that, or one day, you're going to change someone's life with what you went through, because you're going to like be able to share an opinion on it or an interpretation on it, and it's going to help someone. I actually have an example of this. My friend just had a really serious thing happen in her family, and she wasn't sure if she was going to fly down, and she was talking with me, and just because we are friends, and I was able to say this, and I was like, it's no pressure, but like, just so you know, like, just from my experience of like when I was sick, my family and I still to this day talk about how crazy we were to be like, no, don't bother coming down for this very serious appointment. No, don't bother coming down. No, don't bother, because my parents don't live here. To this day, they regret not being there for some of those appointments, for some of those hugs. And I said to my friend, I was like, these are the moments you fly down. These are actually the moments where you go get that hug, even if it's just a hug, because life is short. And it's like, I have that perspective to share now because of what happened to me, because of the diabetes, right? So again, it's something negative that, yes, I can draw positives from. And yeah, it can be too bad when you've got those failures where you have to dig deep to find the positives, and sometimes it's like that. It's years down the road. We're 3.5 years down diabetes, and finally, not finally, like, I feel like I do good stuff on the internet with the diabetes. I try to like be really like a good advocate, but there was like a really tangible thing I was able to give someone because of what happened to me, right? And they went and they messaged me. My friend messaged me and said, like, yeah, like, that was the right call, and I'm really glad you said that. And it's like, that's really cool. Right? So diabetes gave me something I could give someone else. Like, it's like my organ failing, lol, became an okay thing, right? So I just want you to know that we can always draw a positive, because we have to. And that's something I try to convey to people as well. Again, this is like the sick experience, the disabled experience, like coming out again. But it's like, People were so shocked at how positive I was. They were so shocked when I was being diagnosed at how well I was taking it. I kept being told, you're taking this really well, like you're being so strong. And all I could say back is, it was like stupid. I'm like, this is stupid. Like, it's the only option. The other option is sinking. You sink or you swim when the shit hits the fan, right? And hey, if you've sank in the past, sometimes you sink, but try to make those sinks or that sinking don't hit the bottom. And even if you hit the bottom, know that there's no more further than the bottom and you can come back up. You can swim back up. You always have the option to swim. Like in this example, you don't need oxygen. You're just a rock, right? Well, rocks can't swim, so that is a bad example. You know what I'm saying. I'm saying you can always get back up because we have to, okay? Sometimes failures happen and you swim because it's the only option. Sometimes failures happen and you sink because it was hard. But when you hit the bottom, recognize, hey, all right, this is bottom. Draw the line in the sand. This is bottom, and the only place I'm going to go is up. And there's no timeline on that up, but we're just going to recognize we're not going lower. There's no more lower. We draw the line. You're going to go up. There is always an up. There is always a positive. You guys, you got to start practicing gratitude. I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm practicing it constantly. And the word practicing is a really good word for it because it does not happen naturally. But once you start, really cool things start happening. Like, your brain does start getting better. Because today I was like walking my dog, and okay, this is a fun, cool therapy TikTok I saw that I'm going to pass along to you as well. But it all like worked in conjunction, function. What's your function? Conjunction, junction. Anyway, I was walking and I played music that I loved when I was a teenager because I saw this TikTok and it was like, you should listen to music that you loved when you were a teenager. It accesses something in your brain. Don't quote me. This was someone else's TikTok, all right? Like, don't quote me on that shit. But I was like, that makes sense. You know, when something hits, I'm like, that fucking makes sense to my brain. So I put One Direction on. And I played their entire catalog today. I was at Pottery. I was playing One Direction. So for 5 hours today, because from Pottery to walking home from Pottery to walking my dog after that, I just played One Direction. And when I was walking my dog, I was like looking at her. Dogs also help you be so present. So like that's, you know, she's very helpful for my mental health because I can't not be present with the world when I'm looking at her because she's so present. Like, she's sniffing things and it's amazing. But I felt grateful. I was like, wow, like, you know, what is better than walking in the sunshine, like feeling warmth on your skin and a gorgeous dog at your feet that loves you? Like, my life's really good. And guess what? Life's really bad right now in a lot of ways. A lot of them financial and career, okay? But like, yeah, I can still, like, you know, even this bottom, this career bottom, let's call it, there's ways up and there's ways I'm digging myself out. I'm in acting classes, okay? I signed up for acting classes again. You're never too good, okay? You are never above the fight. Nothing magically comes, okay? And I don't want to, you know, say that. Like, sometimes miracles do come and you deserve miracles and I want miracles for you, but like, we can't function and go our day by day thinking a miracle's gonna just, well, maybe you should, because I did read this book once that was about like the universe has your back, and it's like, just expect miracles. Say, hey, universe, I expect miracles. I deserve miracles. You should do that. But when we enter logical brain as well, we're like, okay, that's probably not gonna happen. So like, let's also just like practice gratitude. Let's also, you know, filter in good things. I forget where I was kind of going with that because I got off track, but you know what I'm saying. I think in general, you know what I'm saying. Another thing we should talk about is like, because I think about this as well. I could dwell on the fact, like, here's another failure in my life. The failure to feel worthy/beautiful because of acne for an entire decade. That is really a shame. And I could sit in that regret anytime I wanted to, because I look back at it already and I'm like, whoa, we made so many mistakes being that unhappy about something that has nothing to do with our personality, our love life, our career. Well, a little bit career, I'll be honest. Like, let's be honest, the Hollywood industry and like influencing and all that is pretty shallow industry. So like, the acne did impact my career in a certain way. And then in other ways, good ways, because I was able to like share positives and share strength So like that was good. But anyways, this failure that I could sit in, this regret I could sit in, I'm not going to, because what's the point? Seriously. I think sometimes you just got to have that switch in your brain where you got to be able to go, oh, you know what? There's no point in me going down that path, right? Like, we can see that path. Sure, that path has truth and validity to it. I could be sad about that. But what good will it do me? So we're just block that path off. You know what I mean? Same thing with I referenced it earlier, this lid, this metaphor I have for like the dark thoughts in my brain that I keep this like lid on, which by the way, I have my first therapy appointment tomorrow. I'm very excited. But anyways, I keep a lid on it. We'll see if that's healthy or not. That's what I do. I don't recommend this to others because again, me and my dark thoughts, like, not great. But I keep a lid on it because I'm like, why would I open that? It does me no good. Right? So like that visual works for me. Visuals really work for me. I don't know if you've ever worked in visuals, but visuals really work for me. Writing stuff down, super powerful also. Like even if you just want to like write down like, hey, I expect miracles. It's probably a really positive fucking thing you could do, and it takes 2 seconds. I'm not even kidding. Life is such a joke, guys. Life is such a joke. It's such a joke. It's such a joke. You gotta just do the shit that works for you. You gotta do the shit that helps you. You gotta try a bunch of random shit until you find the shit that helps you. Like writing on paper, like visualizing a literal pot. When I say lid, like what are you picturing in your head? That could be a garbage can. That could be I don't, a Tupperware lid. But no, in my mind, it is actually, and this is, I'm gonna sound crazy, but it is the literal, I can picture it. My mom, ever since I was born, had these pots that would sit on the stove like when she was making soup, and they were like cast iron or something, and they're just like really thick, intense gray. And then there's a silver lid, and like that's the pot that I think of in my head when I think of my dark thought. I'm like, close that cast iron pot, mom's cast iron pot, close her up, right? And it's just a visual that I have for my dark thoughts, and I close them off. Right? And again, I'll talk to my therapist about this tomorrow. But this is the shit that works for me, and it doesn't have to work for you. I'm not saying it's going to work for you, and I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm just like, here's the processes I have set up in my life to get through failures. Here are the processes I have set up in life to like find joy in this world. Here are the processes I have set up to just get by my day, right? You gotta have processes. The world is really hard. Again, this angle of me pouncing on you, it's just, I am big sister, okay? Rat, big sister. I'm trying to think of my rat title, honestly. I'm honestly really sad that TikTok really doesn't like it when I call you guys the rats. It crushes my spirit. I actually think we might have to just come up with a new word because I like referring to us as a team. Like, I don't want to just be like, hey guys. I want to be like, hey rats. Like, we are a club. We are a team. I think it's okay on Instagram. It's just, but I also think it's like confusing to algorithms, and yet it's so important that we have this community. But we kind of need a name for the community, and I don't want us to also be Stinky Armpit. I'll get back to you on that. There's another failure, like what it felt like, like when TikTok was like, you're bullying your audience, and I'm like, LOL, we like being the rats. Like, I literally got a warning on my account for like commenting the rat emoji to the rats. I'm like, you don't understand us. It was frustrating, right? But you just pick yourself up and you keep moving. Like, what a joke. You know what I mean? Like, and you can do woe is me until the cows come home, but guess what? It's not going to get you anywhere. And that's the hard truth. It's not that it's not valid to do it. It's not that it's not okay to do it. It is okay. It is valid. You are so valid for everything you feel. But at the end of the day, if it's not a process that gets you moving forward, it's not a good process, right? And sometimes we wallow. Like, there are definitely times to wallow. Wallowing is really healthy. Wallowing, acceptance, realizations, feeling things in waves, doing what you got to do to like process really heavy shit. Yes. Okay. But at the end of the day, if you never got out of your bed, the situation never changes, right? And we all know that. That doesn't mean it's easy to get out of the bed. I'm not saying that. That doesn't mean it's not valid for you to be in the bed. I'm not saying that. I love you. Everything you're doing, you are a beautiful little angel. You do you. But as your big sister, I'm knocking on the door and I'm just saying, hey, I get why you're in the bed, but I love you and I want you out of the bed. What do we got to do? Do we have to write on a piece of paper that you're a queen? Do you have to write on your mirror in lipstick that you are a powerful queen and it's going to be okay? Do you need to call a therapist? Right? Do you need to call your friend? Do you need to call your mom? Do you need to call a helpline? Let's do it. Let's do it. I can't be there to actually bang on your door and tell you everything's going to be okay. I can't even promise you that everything's going to be okay. But what I do know is that you have gotten yourself through everything that has come up so far, and you can do it again. And yes, you might be tired. And yes, other people's lives are going better. And yes, people have it easier. And yes, all these things. But at the end of the day, you can't smell their armpit. Fuck them. What do you got to do? What do you got to do? Just think about it for a second. I'm literally going to be quiet for a minute purposefully. And I want us all to just think of one thing we could do tomorrow that would just help us. With tomorrow, I'm going to give you some suggestions again. Practicing gratitude. You could set an alarm to go off every hour tomorrow to pause for a minute and find something to be grateful for. That's actually something I did once when I was 21 and something really bad happened in my life. I set an alarm at 5 p.m. and I put the little breathing emoji. And it went off for like 4 months, and at 5 p.m. I reminded myself to breathe and to tell myself everything was going to be okay. Like, the silly little shit. You do what you can, and I have always done the silly, cheesy, corny shit to just get myself to phase 2, get myself to take a step, get myself to pull the covers off, to exit the bed. Right? So let's think for a second. What's even a silly thing we can do tomorrow? 3, 2, 1. Think of it now. Did you think of something? It's okay if you didn't. I always want to just say that again, I'm just spewing stuff as a big sister, not as a professional. You take what works for you, you leave what doesn't. This is just how I function and get myself through life. I want the best for you guys. This is the wisdom I can impart on you. And when it comes to failures, I just want you to know you can't smell someone else's armpit. And I want you to know that every failure has some sort of silver lining. And that's why they call it a silver lining. That's why they don't call it a gold lining. Because it still sucks. It still sucks that you had to find the silver lining. There is no gold lining to failure. There just isn't. There just isn't. There could be silver linings, though. And they can be good enough. So with every failure, take the failure, figure out what the silver lining is, right? We just have to. Right now, career, I don't know if I'm ever going to be an actor. I cannot promise it to myself. But I do know that if I stop, I definitely won't be. So I'll just keep going, And this is a big dream. This is a huge dream. The day I have to hang up my hat on that, I will be a very depressed human. I will cry a lot because this is all I can imagine doing with my life. There are more serious failures I have had in my life. Again, I'm not going to share them with the internet because that would be crazy. But there's a lot going on right now. And at the end of the day, all I know is if I do silly little things, I can get myself 1 inch closer to leaving the bottom, leaving the bed. And that is important. And every inch we get with every silly, cheesy thing we do, or sometimes big things we do, like therapy, calling, reaching out, every single thing counts. Every single thing will help get us off the bottom of the ocean, okay? Every single thing. So just remember that action will always feel better than nothing. So even if it's actioning the silliest, stupidest, most insignificant thing, like drawing a heart and lipstick on your mirror, looking yourself in the eye and being like, girl, you got this, putting on your favorite song and dancing in your underwear, whatever it's going to be, we do it. Because it's sink or swim, baby. And sometimes we got to do a little sinking. I get that. I've done some sinking, for sure. But once we get to the bottom, that's when it's time to swim again. And sometimes maybe you can catch yourself mid-sink. Or sometimes you get that failure, you do a little whoop, head goes underwater for a minute, and then you're up and you're swimming again, bitch, because you're strong. Because you're strong. I know you are. I know you are. little tiny things. Little tiny baby cute little things. That's it. And then there are the bigger things. But sometimes you got to do the little tiny insignificant little funny things to get yourself closer to being able to do a big thing. You know? It's never over. It's never, never, never over. Even when the hardest shit happens. It really isn't over until you're dead. Okay? Right? In a lot of ways. Like, look at, and there's always grass is greener, and there's always, like, someone's going to have it worse than you, always. There's always going to be that factor of, like, you can't smell their armpit. They might seem like they have life under control, and they don't. Bad stuff happens. This has turned into a deeper chat than I ever could have even imagined, but if at the end of the day, all you know is that one silly little thing can get you 1 inch away from the bottom, like, that's amazing. And I'm so proud of you if you can do that. And if you're not in a place to do that right now, that's okay. The time's gonna come. I know that. There's gonna be a time where you're gonna go, okay, I got my footing. I'm firmly planted on the ocean floor, and I'm ready to take a little jump up. And maybe my hand does a little stroke, and we start swimming again, okay? You can do it. You can fail, and you can get back up. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean you're not valid for being sad that you failed. Again, all of your emotions are valid. All of them. I will never, never, never tell you your emotions aren't valid, okay? But we just also have to have in our back pocket that it's not over. And if it's not over, we got to keep moving. Okay? I hope this was helpful. I'm not sure it was. It was a little bit intense. I felt a little bit crazy. All right? Passion coming through the microphone, coming through the camera, feeling a little bit like, shut up, girl. You don't know what you're talking about. But that's anyone spewing an opinion out into this world. Only people can talk about their own experiences, right? And obviously there's all the what ifs. Some failures are obviously much, 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 much harder than others. Some circumstances are much, 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 much harder than others. I'm not denying any of that. I'm just hoping that if this can help, this little chat today can help one person, then I have done something nice with my failure podcast, okay? So, love you guys so much. I really appreciate all the support you guys give me. Every comment, every like, every share. It's genuinely so helpful. And I really appreciate you guys. And next week we'll have Zach on the podcast, and it'll hopefully be less serious. But sometimes when I'm in my flop era, I'm also in my inspirational talk era, right? Because I'm like, fuck this, we gotta get up. Because it's me talking to me, right? Like, I'm on my up, by the way. I would say April was my complete bottom. So I'm pretty close to my complete bottom. I had a complete bottom this year, okay? Hence why we're going to therapy. But I've sprang off the bottom of the ocean floor here, all right? And I've begun my climb, my swim. And I'm angry now, too. And I'm like, I'm going to get to where I need to get to because I deserve it. And if you don't believe that, if you're not your own cheerleader, that's another problem. We might have to talk about that in another episode. I could go on for days about this. I love you so much. You got this. Write yourself a sticky note that says, I love you. To you. And give it to you. Put it in a beautiful envelope. And leave it for you on your coffee machine. Anything that helps you is good. All right. Rats, that's the end of the podcast. Oh, that's the end of the episode, not the end of the podcast. We're not quitting. Even though there's like 60 listeners. And I love every one of you 60.